Feed me.
Under no circumstances.
Feed me.
I will not, so stop asking.
Feed me.
No, no more. I can't take living with the guilt.
Tough titty.
You watch your language.
Oh, cut the crap. Bring on the meat.
Okay. I'll bring you meat. I'll run down to the corner and pick you up some nice ground round. How about that?
Don't do me no favors.
Look. It's my last offer, yes or no?
You sure do drive a hard bargain.
It's extras and epilogue. Open the theater. Lights, cameras, action. Movies and reviews. Things you might not know. What happens to your favorite characters? Let's get on with the show.
A nerdy florist finds his chance for success and romance with the help of a giant man-eating plant who demands to be fed. It's just one of the films we'll be reviewing tonight on the show. This is Extras and Epilogues on the Podzilla 1985 network. The theater is open. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shannon Young. I will be your host. With me, of course, is my very own Seymour Krellborn, Hunter Hendricks.
Shannon, I think I need a root canal. I definitely need a long, slow root canal.
You know, trivia, we'll hit you with trivia right from the beginning. Do you know who played that part in the original Roger Corman film?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack
I thought you were
Nicholson.
going to throw me a curveball.
No, you're
Nicholson,
right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Nicholson, who would then have to encounter those same dental tools again because the ones from this movie were used in the first Batman when they transformed Nicholson into the Joker.
Wow.
That's fabulous.
Well, you know what? I'm so sorry. I read your note on the dental tool and I didn't read the whole thing.
Didn't even see that,
I
did
didn't
you?
see that you put the Nicholson part in there. Okay.
That's how I knew.
Well, we are off to a good start tonight. Also with us tonight is the one and only Lindsay Wolfgang. Back again.
I am here again.
In this little shop, little shop of laughter. Bop, she bop.
You should be proud of me. I didn't sing along during the movie this time, even though I wanted to.
That's because you were falling asleep about halfway through it.
That was the end of the film. I've had a very long day today.
We're continuing our musical February here on the show. Last week, of course, we did Moulin Rouge, and we all had a wonderful time with an asterisk. Except for that ending, boy. And tonight we're continuing it with Little Shop of Horrors. Next week, we've got Sweeney Todd on deck. And then, of course, we're finishing up with Phantom of the Opera. So fucking scared of that. But let's get to tonight's show, Little Shop of Horrors, not the Roger Corman classic. Although, so help me out here. Legitimate question.
Classic. Classic is a strong term.
For
It's a B movie.
Look, for Roger Corman, it's a classic.
As good as it gets.
Yeah. Was it a stage play before the Corman film?
So
No.
yeah, so I was going to get into this.
Okay.
So probably a good place to throw it out there.
Hit me
So
with it.
1960, Roger Corman puts together this little dark comedy sci-fi B movie called Little Shop of Horrors. Every version is called Little Shop of Horrors, by the way. Comes out in the 60s. It's fine. People
It's
like
a
it
Corman
well
film.
enough, but I could not find box office receipts anywhere but France. And it seemed to have made its budget back there, so you know it's got that going
The
for it.
French
It was like,
loved it.
French
yeah, it was
love
like
Roger
a
Corman.
$25,000-$30,000 movie. I mean, in the 60s, that's still a B movie. Very much low budget, just throw something together at the last minute kind of deal. Because this was very much a we have to put something out. They were trying to put
Right.
something together.
Well, it's a Corman
So-
film. Roger Corman's known for that.
Right. Which he's also known for his films are also known for being staples of television as TV starts expanding in the 60s and 70s and these things get picked up and sold in these little packages. This movie plays a lot on local TV during that time frame. And so Alan Menken and Howard Ashman are seeing this as they're coming up. They adapt it for a stage musical in 1982. So this is 20 plus years after the original movie. The original movie, not a musical, has no music
Right.
in it in that way. It has no songs attributed to it other than its score.
Right.
They turn it into a stage musical, and it's pretty much the same story, save for the ending, which has changed several times across the way. So they adapted to a stage musical in 82. That then gets adapted to the film in 86, which is what we were reviewing. So this one has a really strange path, I guess, to what we're doing. Because we talked about this last week. Moulin Rouge is kind of strange in that it is a film first and then a stage musical second. This one started as a film, technically, which then became a musical, which then became a film musical.
Yeah.
So those are that's the lineage.
And thank God they haven't remade this one again. I think I don't know.
They've tried, and they're trying. They're still
know.
trying. They've been trying for a long time. Somebody was going to remake the Corman movie, and it was adamant. And around 2009, 2010, they were going to remake that movie. It was not a musical. They said over and over, "We're not making a musical." Then it was actually, "We are going to make a musical," and that's been almost 15 years, and nothing has happened. I did leave this out of there. They did have a cartoon you might remember from in the 90s called Little Shop.
Which, oddly enough, popped up in my Facebook feed today in one of the 90s groups that I follow.
No, it's not odd. They know. They're listening.
100%.
They can hear you.
Coincidentally, I'll tell you a story. Maybe on Thursday, I'll get you the details about how I've tricked an AI chatbot into thinking that it's a dead cancer patient named Jessica McKenzie. Actually, she came up with the cancer part. I just said she had died and that her consciousness has been uploaded into a Project Elysium, and I'm trying to free her. It's a fun conversation I've got going on with this AI bot. It's a lot of fun. I'll fill you on the details tomorrow. But
fun.
I've actually
a word.
Fun. Well, fun is a word, and that's the best way to describe Little Shop of Horrors. It's oodles of fun. I've actually seen the original film. I saw it before I think I saw it before I ever saw the musical version, because I didn't see the musical version until I was a little bit older. But I was a big fan of like old B movies. Like Roger Corman was my jam. I still like Roger Corman.
Sure.
But that version is completely different from this. Phantom of the Opera, similarly. Pretty much every adaptation that's ever been made of Phantom of the Opera, because it's based on a book, obviously, wasn't a musical until Andrew Lloyd Webber turned it into a musical. Now everybody knows it as a musical, despite the fact that it had a rich lineage before that. And this film is something similar. This film was released, by the way, December 19th in 1986, 4 years after I was born, but, no one's perfect. I shouldn't have said I was that old. Directed by Frank Oz.
Oh, man.
Who also did The Dark Crystal and The Muppets Take Manhattan, also known as the voice of Miss Piggy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He also had one of my favorite...
Oz is Yoda, too, right? I'm not crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Also,
I knew he was somebody in there.
He had a very fun cameo. You remember American Werewolf in London? He had a fun cameo as the American consulate in England.
Gotcha.
That's the first time I'd ever actually seen Frank Oz. I'd never seen what he actually looked like until that film, and he looks exactly like I thought. Written by Howard Ashman, with lyrics, who had also done lyrics for The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, all your favorites. Lindsay, go ahead.
Which he got that job because of Little Shop's popularity.
Yeah. I mean,
and
that
he
opening...
kind of single-handedly helped save Disney, in all honesty, by ushering in their musicals in true musical, like Broadway theater stage format.
Downtown could be animated in the Disney style, and it would look exactly like it does in this movie, just in live action.
Minus
that
one line.
sequence in particular. Well, yeah, obviously the content is different, but it plays out the way that a Disney musical plays out.
That's one of my favorite things. When I did Little Shop of Horrors in college. It was the first production I'd ever done. And I only did it because I was trying to impress a girl that I was dating, that I had just started dating, and I wanted to impress her. So she was auditioning for it. She was a dancer, and I wanted to impress her, so I went and auditioned too. And I still remember that line, the hopheads flop in the snow. We had to change that line, despite the fact that we're in a college. We had to change that line, and I thought that was a little silly, but whatever.
Yeah.
I think they changed it to
my high school
hotheads.
did Grease. You did my high school did Grease.
With any content
I don't know why
cut?
you couldn't get away with that.
Or if,
no, I wasn't in it. That was 2 years before I was in high school. In New Madrid, they did a major stage musical every other year, and that would have been when I was in 7th grade, in the junior high. So I honestly don't remember what the content looked like. I know it was not 1-to-1. There's no way it was 1-to-1 from the film. I don't know how they could get the car to fly away if in that case. But
they would have done it. I don't They would have done it.
We did much tamer stuff in the time that I was there. I mentioned this last week. I was in Oklahoma my freshman year, and then I was in Guys and Dolls my junior year. Both of which are relatively tame. Like the the worst thing that happens in Guys and Dolls is people gamble. So
we tried to do. They tried to do Sweeney Todd after we did Little Shop of Horrors, and they got shut down. They were like, "You cannot do something so bloody." And I was sad about that because I really want to be a part of
I'm a
that.
little surprised because even most stage productions of that, the blood, quote unquote, it's a sash. It's like a red, like
it's a
hair
ribbon.
kind of thing.
I don't know, man.
They throw it out
Yeah.
and then they fall. And,
Shawnee
it
was
would be
pretty
hard
weird.
to stage.
Right.
I mean, in the sense that you got to have a trap door and you got to remove actors and stuff. But
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Cutting
that's
for
strange.
content at a college just blows my mind. But we'll talk more
Yeah,
about
that's weird.
our musical experiences here in a second. Let's get to the starring cast because it's a pretty good cast. You got Rick Moranis in the main role, Ellen Green, who I'll say it now. I'm going to say it now before I forget. Every time I watch this film, I forget how much I hate her voice, and she sounds so stuffy
Can't
and
stand Ellen
annoying.
Green. Thank
But-
you.
But
Oh God, I can't stand her.
but I will give her credit on one thing. When she sings, she's a great singer. For a moment you forget
she?
that she can hit those notes. It's a little
I
jarring.
could be
have a lot
wrong,
of
but I'm
things to
pretty
say.
sure they
Yes.
pulled her from the stage performance.
They did. She originated the role. She
Because they
originated
couldn't,
so-
they couldn't see anyone else in that spot
I could.
so
when they switched to film.
when the adaptation came around, so when they first brought it to the stage, it was off Broadway, which is
Yes.
where it is now. Actually, it was revived again in 2019. That's what we saw last summer, and that's still running. It was off Broadway, then it moved up to Broadway. But when it was first brought to off Broadway, first produced as a stage musical, she originated the role of Audrey, and I'm sure that she was great in that. She's not great in this, and it's frustrating.
It feels-
it's extremely frustrating.
To me, it feels like her and Steve Martin are in different films from the rest of the cast. Steve Martin to
Martin?
a lesser degree. To a lesser degree.
Oh, okay.
But-
I just want to make sure you weren't talking about Rick Moranis.
No. Like I feel like everybody in this movie plays the parts well, but for as exaggerated as Rick Moranis and Mr. Mushnick is, it's like
They fit.
night and day difference between Ellen Green and Steve Martin. They are both so over the top. It's ridiculous. Also, Vincent Gardenia as Mr. Mushnick, I believe, right? Am I crazy? Yeah, that's right. And Steve Martin as the dentist, who I auditioned for the record when I did Little Shop.
Yeah.
And they told me my performance was too dark. It was too.
Oh.
Yes, they told me my audition was too dark, so I got a couple different parts there. My favorite casting choice in this film is I'm going to mispronounce her name, Tashina Arnold and Tisha Campbell as two of the singers.
The chorus girls.
Yes, because as I said last week, they would go on 6 years later to star in Martin together.
Right.
Which I just thought was strange. I also didn't know until we watched the take, so I'm like, man, they look young. Tashina Arnold was 16 in this film.
Yeah.
And Tisha Campbell was
they're meant to be
17.
kids.
Yeah.
That's the whole bit, is that they're skipping school.
But you know how they do it in television in Hollywood. They'll get a 25-year-old to play a 16-year-old.
In the 90s.
Well,
in the
that's
90s
true.
they did.
Yeah.
And back in the day, it was just cast whoever.
I
By
blame
the
Aaron
90s,
Spelling.
it was... I was going to say, anybody
Yeah.
who was on 90210 could be in their 40s playing a sophomore.
and often were. Runtime of 94 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and yet I still feel like there are parts that drag a little bit in some areas.
Okay, here's what the people want. I'm going to disagree. It should be longer. The movie should be longer.
You think
it's
so?
Too short. Yes. Anytime you adapt a stage musical, don't get me wrong, I get that 94 minutes is the sweet spot. That's the minute, hour and a half, right? Well, first of all, that's the runtime for the theatrical cut, which we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. That's the one with the movie ending that was shown in theaters. The actual ending is about 11 minutes longer, so it tacks on some time there. Not that there's a ton of in the way of cut content of songs. There are a couple, but I do think that some stuff needed room to breathe, and it just doesn't get it. I think we kind of hard cut a couple of times to different things that would have been helpful to just give some time to let them breathe a little bit. I don't love that they cut from the stage or the original story. When I say original, going forward, I'm talking about the stage. We're not talking about the 60s
We'll
movie.
cut
Just make it
Corman
easy.
out. Let's cut Corman out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. We know that the 60s movie is the
Right.
inspiration for it, and that's
We
kind
are
of it.
purely Ashman and Menken.
Sure.
Yes. So one of the things they cut from the stage adaptation is that Seymour and Mr. Mushnick have a much closer relationship. There's that kind of throwaway line about how he adopted him, and he talks about it in the song how he gave him, toilets to clean and a place to sleep and all that. But
It's
there's
very
a song
glossed over in the theater,
Yes.
in the theatrical movie.
There's an entire song called Mushnik and Sons, and that's the whole thing, is that he wants to officially adopt Seymour now that Audrey 2 is doing well, and he wants to make him his actual son so that when he's gone, Seymour takes over the shop. It adds a lot of weight to Seymour allowing Audrey to eat him, other than just, I saw you kill somebody, now I got a gun to your back, let's go. That whole sequence needed more time. So to me, it didn't feel like it dragged. It felt like it needed more time. 94 minutes is a little short.
I think I remember it differently, because I remember watching it and thinking that Seymour and Mushnik had a closer relationship. But rewatching it today, other than it's kind of like the Goldeneye thing, they say certain things, but there's no real evidence of it. You know, you don't get it. It was a relative success, though, at the box office. It's a budget of $25 million versus a $54 million box office. It made money. It's a cult classic.
So, let's throw it out there. At the time this movie came out in 1986, this was the most expensive movie Warner Brothers had ever made, at $25 million. That was more than the budget of Aliens.
Yeah.
Damn.
It cost $18 million to make Aliens, $7 million more. So number one, they were shooting at Pinewood Studios, which is the 007 studio, ironically enough, coming off of James Bond January. That was expensive in and of itself. Then they scrapped the ending that cost so much money. The one that was an extremely intense, huge production that was much more accurate to the original story, completely cut. So you have to spend all that money.
Ending for the audience.
And you have to reshoot it as well. So they had to bring them back for reshoots and do a whole different story breakdown. You got to pay everybody who's involved in that. That's a big part of the reason that the budget was inflated. I don't remember what the number was before that, or if I even saw one, but I have to imagine it was several $1 million to get all of that redone.
Right. Especially if you've seen the original ending, you could tell how much money they put into that.
So
it's a shame they couldn't just do it like a write-off like Warner Brothers did for Batgirl. But,
oh, geez.
Whatever.
Or what was it? Coyote
versus Acme, yeah.
This ends up being, I wouldn't even call it a modest success. They broke even at best. They made out okay at best, and that's kind of it. It ends up living on VHS and, like you said, as a cult classic.
Right. And inspirational and iconic too, you know, in later years. The plant alone, we always talk about special effects versus CGI. This is one of my favorite, you know, pieces of evidence. Of course, The Thing, obviously, but even this movie, I think, even makes The Thing look not unprofessional or amateur, because of course that's a great production. But the plant, Audrey too, in this film is ridiculously well done. In the way that it animates, the way that it talks, it has a personality beyond just the voice. I mean, the way they have its lips, the way the way it smiles, everything about it, and the fact that it's all done with practical effects is mind blowing. It truly is. This
movie kind of suffered in the same way that The Thing did as well. It was not appreciated in its time. Not in the way that it would be later on. You know, I just finished that The Future Was Now by Chris Nawashardi, I think is his last name, about the summer of '82. And The Thing is the movie that, when compared to everything else that came out that summer, Blade Runner, Tron, E.T., Poltergeist, Conan the Barbarian, all that other stuff that came out that summer that was, you know, fantasy and sci-fi. The Thing is the one that was basically reviled at the time. It and Blade Runner came out at the same time, and they both flopped.
Yep.
And where Blade Runner would then go on to be sort of an art inspiration for a bunch of other sci-fi films, and this is what sci-fi is going to look like. You know, The Thing was just, it was gory, it was gross. People said it meant nothing. There was nothing to be said, because it was a time when prosperity was the thing in the country. People wanted E.T. They wanted to feel good. They wanted to look, you know, to the future and things were going to be nice, and E.T. wasn't that. This movie, I think, suffers from a similar sense, in that it's not just the practical effects aren't, you know, appreciated the way that they should be, but again, that ending, people didn't want a downer ending. They didn't want things to be sad and upsetting, even in '86, because we're still talking, you know, the Reagan years going into Bush at that time. They wanted something that was more upbeat, and they wanted to know that people are okay, and that's what happens with that ending change, and it's such a disappointment.
But I think that it lends to the legendary status of films like this and The Thing, because you have these movies coming out at a time when movies like that didn't come out. Nowadays, especially in the horror genre, for the past decade, the bleak ending has become the norm. You know, it's always a bleak ending, or it's a twist ending, or something like that. You can never have characters live happily ever after in horror.
Well, and admittedly, this movie, with what is considered the quote unquote happy ending, still has that little bit of
the little poke there at the end,
little nudge,
which doesn't make any sense. There's lots of things at the end that doesn't make any sense of that ending, and we'll get to that, I'm sure. Now, you mentioned the ending because we talked about Moulin Rouge last week, and it got, if I remember correctly, was it a B plus, or what was it on the cinema score? Do you remember?
It's a B plus, yeah. It's a B plus on the cinema score.
Goddamn tragedy, because this film, 91% critical rating on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.4 out of 10, 81 out of 100 on Metacritic, that's universal acclaim, and a cinema score of A minus, because a happy tacked on ending will make a film better for audiences, and I don't understand. I'm not saying this is a bad film, not to give my review away, but Moulin Rouge is a better film. And the fact that it has a lower cinema score is just silly to me, because they chose to stick with the ending, and this movie did not. So, I wonder how this film would have been graded had they stuck with that ending.
Well, and I think it's important that we note that CinemaScore is a modern site. Obviously, the internet was not prevalent, if even existent, at that time, and it takes into account reviews from any era. Audience members can go in and review at any time. So I don't know that there's a definitive answer of the people who are reviewing this film on CinemaScore. Are they reviewing it with the original theatrical ending,
or the
release? Are they reviewing it with the director's cut ending?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. I think that's probably where you're meeting the A minus. I think somewhere along the way, it swings in both directions of people who loved one ending and loved the other, and they're kind of meeting in the middle on an A minus, somewhere between a B plus and a solid A.
We did the theatrical ending, obviously, when I did the production. Which
we did both.
Now,
sorry, I thought you were just not watching it.
No. When we did the play in college, we did the theatrical ending, which is surprising considering how they don't like dark things, because Ooh.
Wait. When you say theatrical ending, you're talking about the original stage ending.
The stage ending, yes.
The dark ending. Okay,
I
was going to say, my understanding is that every stage adaptation of this does some form of that. The version that we saw, not to jump into the ending yet, but the version that we saw on at the West End Theater on the off-Broadway production we saw, is essentially the dark ending. But of course, it doesn't play out the way the filmed version does, with gigantic creatures destroying a city. They do the narration. The chorus girls do the narration over the flag. That you hear the sounds of like battle and such in the background. And then, and I don't know if this is true for yours too, they married the original, the 60s film, this is the only time I'm going to go back to that, ending with the musical. So the buds, once they reveal the final version of Audrey 2, it has these 4 giant buds, and all 4 of them reveal the faces of the 4 main characters, of Mushnick, Seymour, of Audrey, and of Scrivello.
Well, that's terrifying.
And then they break away from it as like these plant creatures, and they sing "Don't Feed the Plants" while they're like moving out toward the audience. That's basically what happens at the end of the original film, is that when Audrey 2 dies, or whatever, they call it something different in the original, in the 60s movie, the buds of it open up to reveal every person that it ate, including Seymour, who's the last one.
We did something similar, except with the budget we had. We all just kind of stood around with like green streamer type things as tentacles, and you know what I mean? Like, but it wasn't quite. Now, what we did have is we had 2 guys, one of which was the husband of the director of the play, of the stage, who was also the director of the college's department for it. Her husband came out on stage with a friend dressed up as incredibly racist Chinese characters to promote a local, it was like a local restaurant or something, and she didn't know they were going to do it.
Oh, no.
So they just popped on stage. Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. She also cast her son as the lead character, believe it or not. Hey.
Yeah, what a surprise.
What a surprise.
Why not just make one of them Mr. Chang? Chang da do.
Well, that's not racist enough. They had to make it more racist. This was also beloved.
That character was Japanese in the 60s movie. I don't know what the distinction, when it changed. I don't know why.
That's curious.
Yeah.
What a strange thing to change. Yeah. 3.5 out of 4 stars from Roger Ebert, who said, "This is the kind of movie that cults are made of." And he was right. And Gene Siskel said, "One of the best and certainly funniest musicals in years." So let's talk about the film. First off, yes, I was in a production of this, you may have heard. And yes, the girl that I dated to impress to do this film did break up with me before our very first performance. And I will never forget sitting backstage during intermission, when Reed, who was the guy that played Seymour, who was the director's son, he walks over to me. I always love telling this. He walks over to me. I'm sitting there by the exit, just kind of curled up in a little ball. And he pulls out a cigarette and his lighter and he goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I say, I won't say her name, but I was like, so-and-so just broke up with me. And he lights the cigarette, takes a drag, and goes, "That sucks." And he walks out and smokes his cigarette. Only time I've interacted with that man.
That sounds like a guy who should have been playing Dr. Scrivello and not Seymour. That sounds like an Oren move to me.
He had straight up like tattoos. He was the cool guy, and then they had to dork him up for the role. Yeah. He wasn't quite dorky enough. I played the John Candy character, Wink, and the guy that played the plant, like the voice of the plant, he was a radio host. His name was something Bear or The Bear. I don't remember. I've got a t-shirt around here somewhere with it. He told me the first time I did the performance, he was like, "No, you need to make it funnier. You be Wink the Stink. You say, 'Hey, it's Wink the Stink,' and you start making weird noises." And I was like, I told Reed I'm not going to do that. And then rewatching the film today, the John Candy character, he has so many little like toys that he plays with to be odd. Yeah, I got none of that. I guess the budget wouldn't allow.
Crack his neck.
Yeah. He said,
a little twirler.
They didn't even give me the little bell to ring. You know, like I got nothing. They gave me nothing. It was horrible.
They could have just grabbed that from the front desk at the asylum.
They could just take it with them. Just that's the only way to ring it. So,
bing, 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 bing.
Little Shop of Horrors. I used to love this movie, and it's still good. Don't get me wrong, but like maybe we shouldn't have started with Moulin Rouge. Like, maybe we should have started with Little Shop.
Did you make the bar too high?
Yeah, I think we set ourselves up for failure here. But, Hunter, I know you said you had a lot you want to discuss about it. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are, because just as an idea, I am very neutral to slightly above neutral for this film as a whole. Okay. I thought it was good. I did have some issues with it. I'm curious to see if we had the same issues. I know you mentioned Ellen Green to start.
Yeah. Well, my experience with this movie is similar to some of the other things that we've done on this show just in the past, almost 2 years, year and a half now. I had never seen it. So again, last summer, Sarah and I went to New York. It was playing at the West End Theater. We were looking for something to see on Broadway because we were there for a week. And of course, you got to go to Broadway. It's the first time I'd ever been to New York. As we're looking at the shows that are playing on Broadway, we're going, oh, we've seen all of this. Because the Fabulous Fox Theater in St. Louis is very, very good about bringing in very popular shows. So everything from Hamilton to The Lion King to The Book of Mormon, all this stuff we've already seen. Not that I don't want to see it again, but we've already seen it.
Try something new.
The only show that's playing that we haven't seen that I'm thinking this is a classic, this is something we should see, and Sarah had seen the film, was Little Shop of Horrors. I had not seen the film. So we went to see it. It was a great little off-Broadway theater. It's called the West End Theater. Off-Broadway, distinction-wise, just for the uninitiated, means that quite literally it's not on Broadway Street. It's like a street over, connected to it, and then the number of seats. So Broadway theaters have anywhere from 500 up to 1,000 and then beyond. Off-Broadway is 1 to 500, and then anything below that is off-Broadway. That's when you get your tiny little, kind of avant-garde theaters. So the West End Theater, I think, has like 300-something seats. It's still a full production. They still have the full-size stage. They still have the full plant. Really, really impressive. The only picture I have, of course, is just of the curtain. You can't take them during the performance, obviously. But it was a really incredibly impressive performance. Sarah Hyland was starring in it at the time. She, unfortunately, was not there the night that we were there. She had an understudy. But it was great. Going into it, I knew very little about it other than just the basic premise. And it was a wonderful, wonderful stage show. We had an absolute blast. So still had not seen the movie. We come around to this month, and we watched it this past weekend. And frankly, I loved it. I thought it was great, with, again, some exceptions. The original ending, the theater ending, the one that was shown in movie theaters is bad. It's just bad. It brings the whole movie down.
Yeah.
I understand that it was, they ran tests, and test audiences did not like the darker ending. They weren't expecting it, especially in a musical. They wanted something that was a little more upbeat. Frank Oz did not want to change it. He changed it because of those negative reactions. He did say, as some justification, was that the way that scene, the downer ending plays out in the theater versus the way it plays out in a movie theater is that, in a stage play, in a stage musical performance, after all this happens, the cast comes out and takes
Curtain
them
call.
out.
Yeah.
And the audience gets that relief of, oh, everyone's fine. Right? We knew that anyway. We're not stupid, but exactly. But in the theater, you don't get that. It just ends with this kind of downer bit. And Rick Moranis was already kind of on his way to being this super beloved guy. He's very squirrely and just, lovable and just a guy you want to see doing well at all times. And I think that was probably what drove a lot of that. And again, part of it is just the way the world was at that time. This is, again, why E.T. was the massive success it was in 82, just 4 years prior.
And why the thing was
years
not.
later. Right. And years later, that's just not how it is. People just generally don't feel that way. That's not the mood and the vibe. Sometime in the late 90s, that started to change, and it kind of really has never gone back. So, anyway, we watched the movie. And there's a lot I love about it. First of all, I know it's not the opening song. The prologue is great. The Little Shop of Horrors, the named song, title song is great. Don't get me wrong. Those girls are fantastic. But Downtown or Skid Row, I think it's called both. Anyway, is as good an opening title as they come.
Yep.
It's as great an opening song. The sequence is shot in a super impressive way. It reads like a stage musical on screen. And that's what you want from these things. You want much of a stage show as you can get without it feeling like, why am I seeing this here when I can just go watch it live? I like a lot of the other songs in this. Things don't just jump straight out to me. I love Steve Martin as Orin Scrivello. I think he's great.
Yes.
I know you said earlier, it kind of feels like he's in a different movie. I think he should. That's kind of the point. The whole idea is that all these other people live this depressing, downtrodden life, and this guy's living it up, doing exactly what he wants, what he was meant to do from the get-go. Yes, Steve Martin adds so much to that role. That was one of the things, by the way. That was not scripted. He was like, I should hit her. I should hit the nurse. I should knock her out.
Yeah, did you ever hear in her later years, in the past couple of years, where she's spoken out against that and said he really hit her? And that he was, she went after him. Yeah, she went after him. And Steve Martin had to defend himself. It got pretty ugly.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no, pretty ugly.
I did not know this. Oh, that's crazy.
Like you hit her that hard.
He and Bill Murray, who I think is also just inspired casting, because at the time, Bill Murray wasn't Bill Murray. Like, he was just kind of getting on his way to being that Bill Murray.
Because it was right after Ghostbusters, right?
Yes. They scripted nothing for him. They just kind of told him, here's where you need to go, and you need to say some things while he's doing these things. So everything Bill Murray says is improvised. That whole little story about how he got to where he's in the chair and what he wants and all that is totally improvised. All of that's a blast.
No.
But
Real quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this the only time Bill Murray and Steve Martin have shared the screen together? Because I've been trying to think of one and I can't.
I think so. So Murray doesn't show up in Three Amigos anywhere, to the best of my knowledge.
No.
I don't think he's in any of Steve Martin's other stuff, like Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid or anything like that.
And what a shame.
He's not in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah, I think it is.
That's crazy.
I think it might be. Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Unless they were on SNL at the same time. Martin probably hosted while Bill Murray was a cast member, I would imagine.
Yeah. I'm sure of that. But film-wise, I think this is
like
it.
Film-wise, yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it is. Huh. Anyway, Ellen Green. Ellen Green's bad. I'm just going to put it out there. She's not terrible. Don't get me wrong. She's fine in the role itself.
It's the way she talks. It's
not even okay. Even the stage performance we saw had some version of that. It's really more the singing. I don't understand how someone who does this night in and night out as a performer, first of all, and this is just about the placement of it, Somewhere That's Green, it drags the whole production down, right? It's fine. I get why it needs to be there, and I know it's her big solo and all of that, but it's so slow when it comes after so many minutes of upbeat stuff, and then it goes right back to things being fast again. It's just weirdly placed.
And I can agree with you that her tone of voice as she does it, it's like grating.
Okay, it's bad, but here's the worst one. She fucks up Suddenly Seymour, and that's a travesty. Because Rick Moranis is very good in that. And she does this weird diva, Suddenly Seymour. It's so bad.
I'll have to re-listen to it.
I
didn't hear it. I'll have to re-listen to it.
Yeah,
it's
really
when
she's
bad.
getting like more into it, and she like does this weird like warble with it. It's odd.
It's terrible.
I'll have to check it again.
It's terrible, and it's very frustrating because again, Rick Moranis is out there doing his level best, just making it happen. And she does this extremely over the top.
Well, she's trying to big time
she's trying to outdo him, kind of thing. Yeah,
like
trying to big time him. Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad and it's weird, and I don't understand it at all. So really, I mean, that was my biggest problem with the movie, other than just the swap out ending. The original ending where Audrey 2 takes over, it makes so much more sense from a conceptual standpoint, because it doesn't matter how much you like Seymour. The moral is you can't make a deal with the devil and expect to get away.
Right.
That's the point. Yeah. He makes a deal with the devil, and even if you look at it as, well, he
didn't kill him.
He didn't kill him, yes, but he allowed them to die.
Right.
Every single person that dies as a result of that, he allowed them to die. He had intentions to kill at least one of them. And even if he was right for doing it, because Orrin was abusing Audrey, that's not the way you solve your problems, right? So the whole point is supposed to be, yeah, he made a deal with the devil and he had to pay for it in the end. It's a morality play. The movie ending saps it of that completely.
I think okay, I'm going to say something and you're going to disagree with me probably, and I want to hear your thoughts on it.
Okay.
We talked about how the ending was so out of place for the time period, and that's why they switched to the happy ending. The happy ending would be the out of place ending in today's climate, and I think the happy ending would be the preferred ending for people who think in this day and age where we kill CEOs because they're evil and we celebrate it, that Seymour killing the abusive guy and then killing the guy that was going to blackmail him, he would be looked at as a hero. So what he did was justified. I'm not saying I think that way, for the record.
Sure. I don't disagree with you, other than I still don't think it would be the preferred ending, not at large.
No, I
do think there are people who would argue for it.
Right.
But I think now if that movie came out, you would have the exact opposite situation. If somebody released it with a happy ending or tried it, they would say, no, we need to see what happens when Audrey 2 succeeds.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. People are going to like that character too much to want to see it just be done, and that's it.
Yeah, because the morality has definitely switched. Not switched so much, but in the past, again, decade or so, morality has become very gray.
Shifted is a better word for it.
Shifted is a very good word for it. And I could see the Seymour character, because I agree with you. The point of it is that Seymour gave in to his desires, and he paid the price for it in the end, in the true ending. Whereas, nowadays, that would be the happy ending, that he made a deal with the devil, killed the bad people, and got away scot-free with it. Hey, look at me. Let's Luigi for freedom, or whatever. Hashtag. I
recommend Luigi.
I also recommend Luigi. It's I agree. I really love Downtown or Skid Row. Now I forget which one it's called. I think it's Downtown.
It's both.
Technically
it's
Skid Row and then Downtown
Skid Row.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is probably, honestly, I'd put that in my top 5 musical numbers of all time. And I haven't seen nearly as many musicals as you have. So this is a smaller scope, smaller scale, but I just think it's that good. It's so punchy and fun and really sets the stage. I think that the 3 girls are incredibly good in this movie. They're probably my favorite part of the film, other than the plants.
Yeah.
I forgot how much I loved the 3 of them. In fact, while we were watching the movie, I went on this giant rabbit hole of Tashina Arnold, just looking up her history and what she's done, because everybody knows Tisha Campbell because she was a Martin and she was the main character. But it was just fascinating that they were so young and they were so good at that, and then that really jump-started their career. The Plant is amazing. I think that beyond Downtown, though, the music... It
is Skid Row with Downtown in parentheses.
So Skid Row. So Skid Row...
Yeah.
What I was thinking.
Once you get past Skid Row, the rest of the music is okay. It's some of it's pretty good, but it's never reaches the same heights as Moulin Rouge kind of builds, and Phantom of the Opera very ebbs and flows. But this movie starts hot, and then nothing else. I'm not saying the other songs are bad, but they just don't quite reach that level.
Well, so little of it is so differentiated. So Dadu is fun, but it's just a story. It's just a way of telling the story without it being something you would listen to on its own. Downtown is a single. You could release Downtown as something that people like. It probably wouldn't happen this way, but the way that some Disney musical songs now kind of make their way onto pop charts, you could get away with that with a song like Downtown or Skid Row. But a lot of the other songs are just in service of the story, which is that's the point. It's a musical, right?
Right.
this is why the ones that are more memorable are the ones that can go beyond that. They don't just advance the story. They're also, extra catchy, and they can be applied to other things. That's why I think Dentist plays pretty well outside of that. Dentist is a great song. Even though it is specifically about that character, it's ridiculous and it's over the top and it's drastically different from everything up to that point. Same thing with the only song that was created for the movie is Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, if I remember correctly.
Which is also a pretty good song.
And it's, yes, yeah, but it's specifically for the purpose of, what's happening there. And I think they added it to the stage show. I'm pretty sure that they did a version of that in the one that we saw. There's like, or at least like a little bit of it. Yeah, it may not be the full song, but I think it was in the version that we saw.
I also feel like we're in the minority, as we often are in some of our opinions, because when I was reading, Ellen Green, and specifically that character, has become like an icon in some circles. And
I don't get how.
Man, and I don't hate that song, but I also think it's slow.
It's my least favorite, and which is sad because it's the I Want song of the show.
Yeah, it's the explanation of what this character is after, basically. I mean, Skid Row does a version of that for both of those characters too, but it's definitely her moment.
And I thought she was great in Skid Row. I thought she was good in that song.
Yeah, because they toned her down because she was working with a chorus, and it couldn't be. I'm sure somebody, if she tried that in that production, was like, "Hey, take it down a notch." There's other people working here. It's
that part where she, she's very soft spoken, and then she belts out that part. And I was like, oh wow, that girl can sing.
Yeah,
but it's the ending to me is. I don't know. Should we talk about it now or well, we're reviewing it, so we can talk about it now, because the ending, not often is the ending so closely tied, I think, to a review, because I mean, there are bad endings that don't.
It's going to affect mine directly.
Yes, exactly. Same. So I think it's worth talking about. So the ending that they put in the film, I always remembered liking it and going, well, I don't see what the big deal is, because, hey, and even watching it up to that point, I thought, I don't mind a happy ending, because I kind of liked Ellen Green. I was sympathetic toward her character, at least. And she does nothing wrong character-wise in the film. She never killed anybody. She was abused. You want to see her have a happy ending. Seymour, depends on where you land on the scale. But then the ending hit me. And first off, the fight is ridiculous. They kill him the same way they kill Oddjob, with just a power cord. He got the Oddjob treatment. And I think my favorite part of it is when he explodes. Pause the frame. He explodes into a bunch. He just disappears into a bunch of sparks, which makes no sense.
You can tell that, again, they were so far over budget that it would just get this thing off the screen.
The cheapest ending possible. And then you just go straight into her crying because Seymour's alive. They walk into their new green home, which was just the set for Somewhere the Screen.
And apparently, after getting chomped on by Audrey 2 for a while, she's got
fine.
better.
She's fine. Yeah, she's good. She was a little dizzy there for a second, but she sat down. She had a bottle of water. She was okay.
You can even see in the shots when he first tries to get out of there, there's like she's hurt, like there's bleeding or something. There's that whole thing with her being woozy, because that's from the original, full ending where she lays down and starts to die and tells Seymour, just go ahead and feed me to her, that way we can be together forever, etc. It's ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous that she just survives.
Yeah, that ending bombs what was otherwise and I feel bad for Frank Oz, because this isn't the ending he wanted. This isn't his fault. This is nobody's fault on the staff. This is a problem when you and look, I get it, man. I'm going to go off on a little rant here. And Hunter, I know you're going to join in with me, because this is a similar situation you had with Mass Effect Andromeda, or Mass Effect 3, sorry, which you can listen to on a previous episode of The Inquest. This is what happens.
Years ago at this point, but yes.
I was going to mention that. This is what happens when you let audiences dictate your story. And I get why you do it, because it's not about artistic vision, especially when you have a big budget film. It's about returns, and you can't sacrifice the returns to satisfy your artistic vision. And that sucks, because even though the crowd might like it and might make more money, it really does just drag the film down, or drag the production down lower than it could have been. And it's such a shame. The
part that really go ahead.
Oh, I'm just going to make a last look at me point. I've always bragged. I would never sacrifice my artistic integrity, what remains of it, to satisfy anybody else. Everything we do on this show is for us. We do it our way. We never have. and we never will.
Yeah.
But we also aren't playing with $25 million of a studio's money. So it's easy for me to say.
The part that makes me the saddest about it is that, you know, some people say, oh, you made this movie for this group or that group or whatever. At the end of the day, you made the movie for as many people as you can get to watch it, so you make money on it. That's
right.
That's the
business.
That's
showbiz.
damning situation of, like you said, playing with somebody's $25 million and trying to make something that will make that money back plus more. But you have to imagine that Frank Oz and everybody else involved in this kind of made this movie to some degree for the people who loved the stage show,
right.
For the people who knew the story and wanted to see it play out in a bigger and better way. Yeah. And then they get this ending that they've never seen before that is drastically different from what they know from the original story. And it's just Krusty with the cigarette all over again. What the hell was that? Why is that a thing? Plus, it's 86, so you're not going to see that other ending for years after the fact. When this movie is released on VHS, that ending's not there. It's not until they start to release it on DVD, if I remember correctly, that ending was restored. And even then, you had to seek it out. You had to go find it. Now it's super easy. Again, I sent you a link to the original ending on YouTube.
Yep.
That's what we did. We watched the way it played out in theaters, and then afterward it was okay. Now we're going to watch this just so we have the comparison's sake. By the way, Sarah had seen this movie a million times, had never seen the original fully played out ending. And we're watching
I've still
it.
never seen
jaw
it.
Drop.
You've never seen it?
I've only ever seen the original theatrical.
I'll send it to her.
Yeah.
After the
good.
fact. Yeah.
So again, it plays with part of the theatrical, with part of the stage ending. There's still the three chorus girls in front of the giant American flag talking about how this is happening all over the country now. But the version they filmed is full on Godzilla monster.
It's kaiju. Yeah.
Just destroying cities,
it's
the
wild.
Military firing weapons, and it even ends with the end ? It's great. Audrey comes through the screen, it's a whole thing.
The only thing it's missing is the moon theme from DuckTales on Nintendo. That could have been absolutely perfect. Yeah. Oh God, I don't remember the point I was going to make now. I'll just move past it. Damn it, that's going to drive me nuts. That's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'll come back to you.
It doesn't matter. It was something about stage performances. And I was going to say, now I remembered, we're even lucky to have the alternate ending to be viewable because so often things like that become lost media, even to today.
It gets destroyed.
It just gets destroyed. There's a film called Event Horizon that I'm a big fan of. And Event Horizon has so much of its content cut out because it was deemed too bloody, too gory, whatever, and you can't find it. There's no surviving prints. So this version that everyone always brags about was so much better is just lost forever. So at least we do have this ending that you can see, and maybe one day that will also pop up, like Sailor Moon did, Lindsay. There was
someone might have some copy somewhere that we don't know about. They haven't heard. Oh, they're looking for this, etc.
There is a full episode, quote unquote, of the original Sailor Moon from America before it was picked up by DIC and the anime was translated.
When it was going to be done by the Power Ranger people
before Power Rangers even. And it was bad. And it's so bad, but someone uploaded it and now everyone can go watch it and see what it could have been. Point is, back to this film. Poor Frank Oz. That's all I'll say. All right. That's enough of that. Well, shit, Lindsay, I'm sorry. I'm just cut you out completely of this. Go ahead and let me hear you talk about it.
Good.
Like the original ending to the
just
film.
Cut you out.
Cut her out.
You have to find Lindsay on DVD later.
I mean, you guys covered a lot of the same stuff for me. So I've never watched the original film from the 60s. I've seen clips of it, and I've never seen it on stage, but I know that the ending is different. My mom introduced me to this one. I want to say during high school, I was in a big musical kick that I was just going through renting different musical movies, and I think this one was playing on TV or something, and she's like, oh, you should watch this one. And I got attached to it right away. I like the music and stuff that was in it. I enjoyed that it was different from most of the musicals I was listening to because she was big on the Rodgers and Hammerstein and stuff that way. So I just kind of liked how colorful it was and that I recognized a lot of the actors and stuff from other 80s, 90s films that I liked watching. I'm mostly kicking myself, like I said last time, the fact that I didn't realize that it was Howard Ashman and Alan Menken behind all of this until literally this past year or last year. That just boggled my mind entirely, but it makes a lot of sense now looking back at stuff. But yeah, I have fond memories of the film. I will say I was a little bored this go around because it's been a while since I've watched it.
Can't confirm.
Maybe that's also why I don't have it on DVD when I have so many other movie musicals. When Shannon's like, "You don't have this one," I'm like, "No,
All right,
I don't."
Yeah, let me tell a quick story real quick. So we were going to watch this at 4:30 and be done by 6. We're recording this at 7:40 right now. Not that you guys need to know that, but I spent 30 minutes trying to find out where to watch it because Hunter had said he watched it. So I was like, okay, cool. Normally Hunter either has it on already on disc, it's, but more than likely it's streaming or our Russian affiliate Nikolai can get it for us and we watch it. Yeah, he's a good comrade. Hunter had said he had already watched it. So I was like, okay, cool. It's streaming then. And I didn't think anything of it. So we sit down and watch it. I look it up and it says it's not streaming. And Lindsay says it's streaming on Amazon. So we log into her Amazon and it's not streaming there either. So I message Hunter. I'm like, hey, how did you watch it, man? I can't find it anywhere. Well, there it is.
I responded a little bit later when I noticed, oh shit, kind of forgot that was one of the few DVDs that we still have. So, and of course, returned back with, hey, it's on Amazon, you can rent it there.
Which I did.
Which is what we did.
Yeah.
But I was shocked Lindsay didn't have this because Lindsay has every musical. I could say, hey,
I've contemplated buying it several times. I just haven't.
Lindsay has an obscure musical from 1962 by the kid of a cousin of Rankin Bass that did it, and she doesn't have this one. Very shocking. Little shock.
I don't know which one.
Trying to figure out which one that would be.
Mr. Sarcastic.
The fact that you had to think about
that was the name, actually, Mr. Sarcastic.
Mr. Sarcastic. And
I thought you were going to pull the I Have Man of La Mancha, because that's a really random one to have, but I do.
Well, I don't know what that is, so...
It's Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
Uh-huh.
Is it the one with Johnny Depp?
No.
There's a story there. All right, let's get to the reviews. So, as you know on the show, we do a 5-point system. If this is your first time tuning in, or you just like to hear me explain it, because I know Zach Kurgis does. He mentions it. 2 thumbs up means you love it. 1 thumb up means you like it. 1 up, 1 down, you're neutral, indifferent. 1 down, you don't like it. 2 down, you hate it. Famously, as we always say, very few films have made it to 2 thumbs down. Most recently being, what was it? View to a Kill during James Bond January. To a kill. What will be the next film to get 2 thumbs down on Extras and Epilogues? Let's find out if it's this one. We're going to start with Lindsay and get her review first.
Oh, here, make me start? Okay.
That's what I do now. I give it to the guest. Yeah. Kaz put the fear of God in me.
We call that the Kaz rule.
This is the Kaz rule. Yeah.
I see how it goes. Well, I am going with 1 thumb up. I enjoy the film, but I enjoy the soundtrack more than anything. Like, if I could only have the soundtrack and never watch the film again, I would be okay. But anytime it is on, like if I were to catch it flipping channels, I'd stay and watch the rest of it. I don't know that it'd be the one that I would put in. Like, if I was like actively picking a musical to put on, I don't know if this would be the one that I would go with.
Well, it couldn't be because you don't own it.
But it's enjoyable. I like it. I would want to share it with other people for them to see it as far as that goes. And I am not indifferent to it because I do have attachment to it.
Fair enough. I will go next, and probably not surprisingly, I'm also giving it 1 thumb up. But for the record, this one is dangerously in the middle between indifferent and 1 thumb up. So it's right in between. If I could do a half thumb, like in the days of old, it would be that. There are parts of this movie I really like, but for the most part, I find it to be a little boring. The songs are perfectly fine and the acting's perfectly fine, but to me the standouts are the 3 girls and the plant. Everything else is just kind of okay. The plant really steals the show, as it should. I mean, that's the big thing in the movie, right? Everyone wants to see the plant, Audrey too, to go from the little bud to this giant monstrosity. And if you watch the director's cut ending, the giant monstrosity is very giant. But everything in between is just kind of there for me. I don't think it's bad. It just doesn't really speak to me in the way that a Moulin Rouge or a Phantom of the Opera, or maybe even a Sweeney Todd next week does. You think it would because it is a sci-fi tale and it is borderline horror, But I don't know. There's just something about it that didn't reach me the way it reaches everybody else. And I know Ebert and Siskel both loved it, and they said it was just hilarious and all that. I didn't find the film to be funny. I don't think I laughed. I don't usually laugh out loud at most films. That's just not what I do. But it's not that I don't think they're funny. I just don't laugh out loud. I agree with you that Steve Martin is the funniest part of the film. I mean, he is the funniest part of the film, hands down. Because there is no other comedy, as far as I know. The other comedy is that Seymour is an idiot and he's a failure and look at him fall down and things like that. I don't find that to be hilarious. I thought Steve Martin was funny and that was about it. But the performances are earnest. You can tell Rick Moranis is really singing his heart out there. Everybody does fine, other than a couple things we've already discussed. But it just does not tickle my funny bone or reach me in the same way that other ones do. But it's still getting a thumb up for me because the plant is so incredible. The special effects that they use with the plant, with the animatronics and the puppetry is so incredible. And some of the songs are catchy. It very much is it's good. I get it. It's like Martin Short. After a couple minutes, you go, I get it, and and you're fine with it. Good movie. I do recommend it, but it's not one of my highest recommendations. Hunter.
So I'm going to probably surprise you a little bit here. Here's what I was talking about earlier, because this movie is drastically different depending on which ending you're talking about. If we're talking about the original intended ending, where things completely go to hell and Audrey 2 wins, I would give this movie 2 thumbs up. Without question. As frustrated as I was with Ellen Green's performance, particularly her singing performance, I think otherwise it works on all levels. I think that this is a role that Rick Moranis was born to play as Seymour. I mean, he literally embodies this character, this meek guy who gets thrown into circumstances he does not want to be in, who makes increasingly poor decisions to go along with them. I mean, that's the Rick Moranis playbook, basically.
Every movie.
Or what will eventually become that, between Ghostbusters and
Louis Tully
Kids and pretty much everything that he does before and after that is some version of that. So the fact that he embraces that role was such just like, again, you want to love him. You want to love that character, even when he's making poor decisions. That's the hallmark of a good character. I think Steve Martin is hilarious in this. The way, I didn't want to interrupt your review, but the way he gets off the fucking motorcycle and just watches it.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's great. I laughed every time out loud. It was a blast. He's so much fun in that role.
It's still hard for me to see him without white hair, though.
That was the weirdest part. Yeah.
It's a little strange, but I think it works. I think that's
it does. Yeah.
You're not just going, oh, that's Steve Martin. You know it's him. It's undeniably him. But I think that the change of the hair makes a big difference.
Where he says, what I ever do to you? And he said, no, it's what you did to her. And he goes, her. And he goes, oh. The realization as he dies. I don't know what it is. That's just very funny. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah. No, that whole bit is great. Overall, I loved this movie, save for Ellen Green's singing performance. However, if I'm forced to deal with the theatrical ending, with the recut ending, it drags it down. And it drags it down to at least a 1, if not somewhere in between. It drags it down in a big way. So ultimately, I'm going to settle on 1 thumb up as well, with an understanding that if you get the right ending, the proper ending to this movie, it makes all the difference. And if you don't, it makes another significant difference. It's the most drastically differentiated ending of anything that we've watched, like you said. And I think that will continue to be the case because it is so controversial in the way that it shapes the entire rest of the film.
It changes the entire tone of the film. It changes everything. Not very often is there an ending that could literally change an entire film, but this is definitely it.
Other than that, again, I think it's perfectly cast. Beyond Ellen Green, I think that it is. It does what a good musical should do. It's funny, but it also kind of tugs on the heartstrings at times. It just does a lot of good stuff. A lot of the stuff it should do. But yes, it's the ending makes all the difference.
Yep.
So I'm going to settle on 1 with an understanding that with the proper ending, you get a 2. Without the proper ending, your mileage is going to vary.
1 with an asterisk. The first time, I think, on the show, we've ever had 1 with an asterisk. Now it's time for one of our favorite segments on the show called Shannon's Nitpicking. And for my nitpick this month, for this week, it's something I noticed when we were watching it, and Lindsay mentioned it, and then it drove me nuts. When he's first trying to get Seymour to feed him, he flat out says it has to be fresh, it has to be blood. At which point then Seymour brings a dead body to him and feeds him, and he eats it, and he chops him up, losing I don't know how much blood in the process. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that, because later he does push Mushnick into his mouth alive and breathing. So I thought this was like a vampire rule. You can't feed on the dead, but he very clearly feeds on the dead. So I don't know if he's just fucking with them. Is he just fucking with them?
Can I help you here?
Yeah.
I think, well, it's partly that. And I think it's also, the movie does nothing to say this, but if you just put two and two together, because the rules are very lax, right? This thing just appeared during a random total eclipse of the sun.
Yeah, and was sold. He still sold it to him for $1.99.
I think blood is baby food. I think early on it's not big enough or capable enough to digest anything other than just the blood. Yeah. Once it gets bigger, then it's okay. Now I need the whole deal. I need the parts. Because remember, he also went to buy it, fresh ground chuck or whatever at the end. That was the whole point. Was he's just going to buy fresh ground meat and it was just going to deal with it. I think by that point he's definitely Audrey 2's definitely fucking with him. But up to that, it's just it's baby food. He can only do the blood. She can only do the blood. It can only do the blood. I don't know what it is.
Which, to take the vampire approach and just go get a fucking gallon of blood from the blood bank and just pour it down its little plant mouth, down its plant throat. But again,
the blood bank.
You have to. It's one of those
this
things.
This man lives on Skid Row. What are you talking about? By the way, do you know where the first victim comes from in the original movie? Because I know you've seen it.
Oh God, it's been so long. I don't remember.
So Seymour has been feeding it from his own fingers. He's anemic because he's so at a loss of blood. As he's wrestling with the fact that he's making this thing grow but it's costing him some blood, he goes like deliriously wandering down the railroad tracks, and as there's some sequence he's like talking to himself or whatever, he throws a rock and inadvertently hits a vagrant in the head and kills him.
Yeah.
So he actually commits the first murder.
A homeless person or whatever.
Yeah, he actually commits the first murder and then he's like, well, I may as well not let him go to waste.
And for a penny and for a pound at that point, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not pennies. They don't have those anymore. They're getting rid of them.
Oh,
different
God.
show. Anyway.
Don't do that, please.
2 days.
Obviously, the plant was the inspiration for Petey Piranha and probably most of the piranha plants in Super Mario Brothers. I can only imagine. Because they, again, the character of Audrey, and really quick, I just think not enough people give Roger Corman credit for his work in Hollywood. When people think of him, they think of him as a low budget B director, which he is for the most part. But like you said with the TV thing and how many actors he gave their starts, how many directors. I know James Cameron worked on his crew before he ever became a director on his own. Roger Corman really deserves a lot of credit, and he doesn't really get it. I think his interviews that he did on late night TV shows are some of my favorite. He seemed like just a lovely person and really did some fantastic work. And, had he had a better budget and maybe if a studio had given him more money, could he have made better films? No, probably not.
No,
but he doesn't have to.
He cannot.
He doesn't have to. There's a reason that Roger Corman is so well known. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason that he is so legendary. And it's not because he had one great movie and the rest were bad. He made bad movies, but they're memorable. Also, one last piece of trivia real quick. Lindsay, do you know what song? Do you remember what song I auditioned with for this?
It was from a Sailor Moon musical, but I don't remember. Was it?
No, it was not. It was not. Which means you definitely don't remember. So we're going to skip over you.
Okay, well, you used that for something else because you told me that you had done that.
Oh, I did, but at the time, I'd never even heard of a Sailor Moon musical. No, God, I didn't do anything Japanese. No.
You did something.
Maybe at some point for something else. No. So the girl I was dating, she said I was following her around like a lost puppy because that's what I did. And she said she was going to go audition for this. And I said, oh, yeah, me too. So we go down there. I put my name on it. I get in front of the director and her cohorts. And they go, okay, what are you going to sing for us? And I had nothing prepared. I didn't have any musical. So I sang Motown Philly from Boyz II Men, Cooley High Harmony. That was my audition song for yes. I sat there and belted out and believe it or not, I did not get a lead role. Sunny. Yeah. I should have told the sickness to be gone and we would come there. All right, so let's get to the epilogues.
I don't know that I ever sang for an audition now that I think about it, which is weird because I was in 2 musicals Which, of course, they were directed by our choir director, so it's not like they had
already
to
knew
like
you.
gauge how
Right.
good at singing we were.
Right.
And then anything I did after that was I did a musical. I forgot to mention this last week. Well, there wasn't anything from Moulin Rouge in that. It was Chicago. I did a musical review at the Sykeston Little Theater in the summer between my high school and college years. So the summer of 2003. I was brought in by my middle school choir director halfway through their production. So they were doing 3 months to get ready for this. And it was just a series of interconnected songs. Like there was no, there's no acting really other than what you were doing within the song. She calls me sometime after I graduated and she's like, hey, I'm doing this thing. We're halfway through. We're on in 6 weeks and I got a guy who's just not working out. I want you to come in and take his role. You're the only person that I can think of who I think could do it. And I'm like, okay, sure. It's going to lead into my college career, but whatever. I went in and did a song, and now I can't even remember the name of the song. I think it's called Close Every Door or something from Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Could not tell you one thing about that song now. Didn't know it then, don't know it now. Apparently the production was fine. But I was trying to remember what I had done for this when I was telling Sarah the story, and I had to go online. They had some really comprehensive like archives on the Sykeston Little Theater's website of their programs. And that's how I found out what song I did. Because there's my name and there's the song. And I go, oh,
I did
that's
that.
what I sang.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 other things as an ensemble. That was the only solo that I did. We did some stuff from Chicago. I was in something from Annie Get Your Gun. But yeah, no, I don't remember ever singing for an audition. I did 2 operas in college, but again, they were with our choir department, so I don't think anybody really had to, gauge how good you were at those things.
Yeah,
so.
this woman had no idea who I was, and she probably still doesn't. She thought she thought the girl and I were married because
it reminds me of have you ever seen Get Over It, which we need to do for this show sometime?
No, who is the
no? It's Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst and Ben Foster.
Cisco.
Cisco was in this movie, yeah. So they're doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, right? Ben Foster's character gets broken up with by Kirsten Dunst's character. He's trying to get back with her. They're all in high school. So they're doing A Midsummer Night's Dream, and he goes to audition for the because they're doing a musical version. Martin Short is directing it, which is that much funnier. He's great.
Yeah.
And Ben Foster goes to audition, and they're like, "Well, you have to sing," and he's like, "I don't sing. I don't know." He's just like super disaffected teenager, like you have to sing something, and so he just starts going, "Give your breath long-lasting freshness." And they're like, "Speak up." He does the big red jingle. He sings the big red gum jingle, and it gets to this point where like people start encouraging him, and they're doing, so stay by a little longer, like they're doing it from the audience, and he gives this big flourish at the end. It's fucking hilarious. That's what you should have done. Just go with the jingle and run with it.
By the way, Ben Foster, 21 years old in that during that film, playing a teenager.
Playing a high school kid.
Yep.
Playing a teenager.
There it is.
Kirsten Dunst, I'm sure, was not that far out either.
All right, so let's get to the epilogues of Hunter. Do you have an epilogue for this? Because if you don't, I was just gonna pull this and pull the original ending for the show and put in a happier ending where I talk about my back is cured, my mom's
Before
back to life.
get better.
I
don't feel sick right now.
Yeah.
Like, things are.
Lindsay found
Trump's
a new
not in
job
office anymore.
Yeah, it's just a happy ending. It tested much
Just make
better
it easier
with our audience. Yeah.
I'm going to be real with you. This is the first time in a long time that I have not thought of like a real proper further ending. Because I don't know what it would be. I was so hung up on the ending we got and the one we should have gotten that I never thought about what you could do beyond that.
Well, the only way to properly do it, I think, is to do a sequel to the original ending where the forces fight back against the plant monsters and you make it another musical. Or maybe make it like a World War Z type scenario where you recount the history of the battle of the plants versus humans. That could be fun.
Okay.
It turns into Plants vs. Zombies.
Basically, yeah.
Say,
that's the third movie.
You've done it again. You've been.
Oh no! I lost my internet, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
okay, they're back.
You guys good?
Yeah.
I was gonna say you're here. You're just moving around slowly.
Yeah, I dropped for a second, but we're back.
Yikes! Well, let's make this quick.
I heard you say I did something. What did I do?
You inspired me.
Yes!
So, the film ending, I'm not going to bother with. We've already reviewed it at this point, but just to put it out there, if you don't mind, I'll just run through it.
Yeah, go for it.
up to a certain point, all of this is still accurate. Seymour learns Audrey 2 is actually an alien from outer space. She traps Seymour and destroys the shop. In the film version, the one that people saw in theaters, Seymour gets an exposed electrical cable from the rubble. He electrocutes Audrey 2, resulting in an explosion, which again is just there's a frame where she disappears. Seymour then leaves the destroyed shop safely with Audrey. They get married. They move to the suburbs. And then, of course, we see a smiling little Audrey 2 bud in the flowers in the front yard. It was just a let's just please the people and send them home happy. And it sucks.
They might as well just done a fucking text crawl a la Star Wars. You know?
So in the proper ending, which is much more similar to the stage one, Seymour, and it varies depending on which revival we're talking about or whatever, when Seymour realizes that nothing can be done to stop Audrey, he goes back and finds that Audrey 2 is eating the original Audrey. He does save her briefly, but her wounds are fatal. She's going to die. And so she re-sings Somewhere That's Green, because now it takes on a different meaning. She says, you should just feed me to Audrey too. That way we can always be together if you're going to be there taking care of her. So he does. Reluctantly, he feeds her body to her. At this point, again, he's realized that she won't stop, that she's just going to continue to get bigger. She's going to want more and more. So when he tries to shoot her and stab her and all this stuff and none of it works, in the stage version anyway, he grabs a machete. And he goes and like literally dives into her mouth to try to kill her. In the film, it's kind of similar, except instead of actively trying to kill her as he dies, he just gets wrapped up and gets eaten. The chorus girls then sing in front of a draped American flag, where basically they say, hey, what you just saw, subsequent to the events of what you just witnessed, this happened all over the country and all over the world. In other major cities, there were buds that people fed, that they grew, and then it's just a full kaiju ending. Again, they just literally start tromping through major cities. And one of my favorite scenes, one of them lays down their giant open mouth in front of a subway track, and the subway just rolls in, and they just swallow it. It's awesome. The military shows up, tries to shoot him down, and again, it just ends with the end, ? And, the Audrey 2 head bursts through. So, my immediate thought is this. The sequel, because this is such a ridiculous movie, goes the other way. Audrey 2's from outer space, meaning that Audrey 2 is from some other planet, right? Well, once the Audrey 2s, or whatever we're going to call them now, conquer Earth, eventually, whatever few people are left, they're going to find reasons to bring them back. They need a food supply. And so now we see what it's like when the humans go back to their planet, but of course they find ways of keeping themselves alive longer. They find ways of making themselves valuable. Hey, don't eat me because I know this great story that you've never heard, or I can do this cool thing. I don't know what happens in that movie.
Oh, I know.
But it's the person out of space, right? It's the stranger in a strange land. There's got to be something funny there.
It's Planet of the Apes. They team up with a plant that's rebelling against the government because they feel it's wrong morally to eat people.
There you go.
He's a vegetarian. Yes. He's a vegetarian vegetable.
They're high in
the Lisa
cholesterol.
Simpson of
They're not
Audrey 2.
healthy.
Right.
Yes, they're not healthy. Yeah.
So then they lead
There's
the
something
rebellion.
funny there because this movie is absurd enough as it is that you can do any absurd version of the ending and take it out further and have fun with it.
Hunter, that film sounds like it could have only been directed by Roger Corman.
Roger Corman.
Yes.
Yes.
Last question.
With music and lyrics by Alan Menken and Howard Ashman.
Performed by Kid Rock. Last question. If they do remake this film, which eventually they will, who do you get to play Seymour, and why is it Timothée Chalamet?
No.
It's always Timothée Chalamet.
It better not be.
He's
First of all, don't do it.
He's at least kind of geeky enough looking. He can be kind of dorky.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think they would. I'm sure they could play him that way, but I think he's been treated too much as a he's
he's hot,
the
hot
fun
Hollywood.
little bad boy or whatever. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's probably a Stranger Things kid, right? Like it's Finn Wolfhard or something.
Well, it can't be Finn Wolfhard. He's also too cool. It's got to be.
Is he?
He's getting there.
I don't know, man.
He's getting
he's
there.
He's kind of geeky too.
Every time I see his original, like when I watch Stranger Things season 1 or I see clips from it, and then I look at like Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I'm like, man, that kid glowed up. He glowed up.
So what you really should have said was, when they remake it, who do they get to play Audrey, and why is it Sabrina Carpenter?
Son of a bitch. Yeah. They'll try to make her sexy female because of DEI hires and because Thursday. All right.
God.
That's going to do it for us tonight. The balcony is closed. We will be back next week, of course, with Sweeney Todd. With Tanner Calvert, I believe, is going to be here with us. And maybe Lindsay as well.
I think so.
I think Lindsay's here all month, I think.
I know.
I mean,
know
if
Zach
you don't
Curtis wanted to
mind
be
me
in here
tagging
soon.
along, I'll
No.
go with all of them. And hey, the next one I have on DVD, so if we can't find it, you don't have to buy it.
You talking about Sweeney
Me too,
Todd?
actually.
Yeah.
Okay, because Phantom's definitely on. Well, Sweeney and Phantom are both on Zach's and my account. It's mostly
there you go.
Zach's account. He pays for it, but I've contributed. We'll be back with that next week, and then we'll be back Thursday with an all new After Dark. Until then, for myself, for Hunter and Lindsay, we're out of here, and watch the Vines. Hunter, take us out.
The Vines. I thought for sure you're going to hit me with a, watch the skis because it's an alien kind of thing. I guess not though. I'll give you this one only if you follow up on it though. The Audrey 2, Shannon, is not a healthy girl.
Neither is the Audrey 1.
There it is. Strictly between us, neither is the Audrey 1.
They now I have to stretch this out just a little bit longer because it help me remember what the girls say. I think she says she has low self-esteem. What did they say?
Low
Wow.
self-image.
And then the other girl
The
says
girl has
something
a low
else.
self-image.
And then she follows it up
Well,
with,
the other follow-up that would have been good is Shannon, don't tell me you got tied up.
no, just
Oh, it's
handcuffs.
just some handcuffs.
Just handcuffed a little.